Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. On today's episode of conventioNOT, we chat with Miss Jennifer Leone. Jen's professional title, achievements, status are incredible. But what I get so excited about and what this podcast is really about is about how much more than that she is. What she's gone through, what she's experienced, what she's been able to actually share with others through this path and this pursuit. When we sat down to create this podcast, I think Ryan and I envisioned conversations like this. Jen is a mother of two, a wife, a two-time cancer survivor. Honestly, though, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to learn about bravery and survival, if you want to be inspired, maybe even if you just need something to put one foot in front of the other, tune into this episode. We're so grateful for you, Jen. Enjoy, everyone.
We've both been working today.
Well, we have put in a full day already, so at the end of it, if I'm still...
But it's not even 11 yet, so I guess...
Oh my gosh. Lord.
Just, it feels like a full day, but I don't have a full basket yet, so I'm afraid I'll have to go back to work after that.
Yeah, I think the premise of the show is hopefully a little bit more casual too, right? Like we're not trying to record middle of the day thoughts.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's another podcast where people tell you how to be awesome.
But that would be a good idea. I mean, like yesterday, my middle day thoughts were really bad.
It might be just like a stream of vitriol, right? Like, what's your middle day thought? Yeah. Well, it's 10:30. I'm behind on everything. And I'm just thinking about how fortunate and happy I am about that's bullshit.
No, actually yesterday I was thinking about how I wish my flight was today.
Right.
Instead of Friday. And,
do you get to do or do you ever do the flight move up thing where you thought you were going to fly out at like 6:00 tomorrow?
Yeah.
And somehow you get to go home tonight at 4.
Yeah. I actually am thinking about doing that tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Because I'm supposed to fly out on Friday morning.
I'm notorious for that.
When all the other consultants are trying to get their asses home before Friday.
You got it. You fly Southwest, right?
I've started flying more Delta since I'm coming to Atlanta.
Same.
Damn
Service
points.
is different, right?
Yeah.
Mike, we talked about this before.
No, I love it because I'm learning. I'm learning from frequent flyers like yourselves. There's a reason why people have this loyalty. I mean, for anything, if you only buy a car once every 10 years, like you shouldn't offer your opinion on car buying, but you guys fly all the time. I don't fly that often, but people I know that fly the most are probably Southwest. To me is one that comes up all the time. Delta seems to be the second most, in terms of customer loyalty. And if people have any sort of passion towards their airline of choice, Southwest and Delta seem to do something right.
When I'm flying to Atlanta, I usually will always try to do Delta. But if I'm flying West Coast, I'll always do Southwest.
Okay. That makes sense for sure.
And if I'm flying East, then I do Delta typically.
Yeah.
And then there's those random flights where I have to take American, and then I'm just always pissed because I got no status with American.
None. I wasn't going to start naming names, but American and United seem to have a different effect on. I won't say their customer base because I don't know anyone that'll go to bat for either of those two companies.
Yeah, nobody.
If you live in Chicago, you're fucked. Let's just put it that way, because that's
all they got, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, Intro, by the way. Welcome to our guests. Jen Leone is with us. We're here in my home today doing the very first interview from the house. It's actually the second time we've done this interview, right?
Yeah. But I kind of like it this go around. You know why? Because I like this lovely four-legged animal on the floor. He's kind of relaxing, and I'm just giving a little rub with my foot. He's enjoying it. It's relaxing me, kind of bringing me down a little bit. I like it. To an even level, He's
such a Zen dog.
He is.
He really
yes.
is.
Yes.
He's
so cool.
He went through cancer last year. which was pretty tough.
That's why I like him so much.
Yeah, maybe that is why you like him so much. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, before we get into all of the details, the deep details, which, I'm sure we will, our guest with us today is Jen Leon. And Jen, someone that, of course, like I said, we recorded a little bit with before and had some internet and power outage problems, which turns out isn't really well for recording a cross-country podcast. We have inadvertently or directly kind of like work with each other in different capacities. I guess for what seems like forever. That's probably enough for me. I think you could introduce yourself. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Yeah,
thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. So just to go back into the archives, I'll never forget one of the first meetings of you. You had on a headset and you were in sales, of course, pacing with a ball in your hand back and forth in your, little office, kind of doing your thing. You saw me. I was like on the outside. I was like, give you a little wave. Yeah. And you came out and you're like pacing the hallways, just continue with the headset on. Like you were a mean sales machine back then. I was like, wow, this is like the world of sales as it is in your life at that point in time. So that's one of the fondest memories I have of meeting you.
Man, I was
walking into corporate
Atlanta. That was
corporate America. Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Fresh to corporate America. And I'd really only worked, save like some restaurant jobs. I'd only worked in like small business to that point in time. And I've always like gone back and forth since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, I had like an office at the top of a building.
Yep.
I had to beg for that office, by the way.
It was a nice view.
It was a great view.
It came with some, what's the word I'm looking for? It came with some strings, right? You worked your ass off and you were.
Yeah. Yeah, I was charged at that point in time. We built something a little bit about, Mike. We built a consultant business there. I had the support kind of corporate America.
Yeah. So I know this isn't about you, but that's just, that's how I remember. That'll be one of my fondest memories of in meeting you. And
I probably didn't even have a beard then.
I don't think so. It was 10 years ago. So
I was very clean cut, fresh out of Detroit. I was kind of squeaky clean at that point in time. Hadn't relaxed in. So Jen, introduce yourself.
Yeah. I'm Jen Leon. A friend of Ryan McDevitt and new friend of Mike. How do you say your last name?
Sennett.
Yeah. Oh boy. So introduction. My name is Jennifer Leon. My friends call me Jen. My enemies call me Jenny.
Really?
No.
Jenny from the block.
I am a vice president of a billing and collection company, which is a smaller part of a larger post-acute care software company here in the Atlanta-based area. The company that I worked for was acquired. I've been there for almost 10 years. So doing my thing for 10 years.
So I guess about the majority of the time that we've known each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar for me. So to a certain extent, we've grown up in this crazy medical equipment space together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. DME is definitely not where I envisioned myself to be, but it's been a real good thing for me. I've learned a ton in this industry. I've met a ton of really great people, made a lot of lifelong friends, and I'm still here loving what I do. So
DME is durable medical equipment. And it's basically like it's wheelchairs and walkers and CPAP machines and oxygen machines. It's very sexy.
It is a very sexy industry. I didn't really even know what it meant either until I entered it. Honestly. I had no idea what durable medical equipment meant.
Right.
And now I know enough to be dangerous.
That's right. Or at least to make sure that the process works around it. Right.
Yeah.
So Mike knows a bit about this, right? Like Mike measures the accidents that put people into our equipment.
Oh.
I see it more on one side than the other, but when you guys are talking about DME, I oversimplify it in my mind as thinking like the hospital stuff that isn't at the hospital, right? Like the stuff that people need at home to, whether it's something as simple as ambulate to something as complicated as breathe.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you guys talk about it real succinctly, but I think it's really big. So for me, when you guys are talking about the people you work with and the successes they have, I'm like, Man, they must have sold a lot of walkers, but you know what I mean? Like, there's obviously a much larger component of it that I think you guys are just real modest about how big and like gnarly of an industry it actually is.
Yeah, I think, well, by and large, we deal with the folks who deal with the patients. So maybe our perspective, it's not jaded, but it is a little bit different than the clinical work that a lot
on the business side than the medical side, right? I mean, you guys can't be ignorant to that, but that's not your patient care isn't your everyday, right?
Right. Specifically on my side, I'm teaching the providers who are selling this medical equipment to their patient base. I'm teaching them how to run a more profitable business by how to talk to their patients about paying for their shit. You know, like, you're going to leave with this CPAP machine. You're going to have to pay for it. And it's going to be $23 a month. And we're going to need a card on file for that. And so I that's what I do. I teach providers how to have those conversations. I mean, that's what I guess I used to really do. I've kind of moved up a little bit. So I'm not actually in the day-to-day operations doing that. Now I'm looking for other aspects of other industries that might need this type of service and trying to expand the business, all the while maintaining the current book of customers we have and maintaining that revenue. So,
and our end of healthcare too. Well, I guess like a lot of healthcare is consolidating. I think that our industry, and I don't know the numbers to this, so I won't quote that. Although I do see a lot of podcasts in our industry that are coming forward, which is kind of cool. I've been listening to them. But ultimately, I think our end of healthcare is probably 50% of the market cap that it was when we started, but with maybe 150% of the patients, you know? So over the past 10 years, half of the money, and I know I have to say this in layman's terms, Mike, I can like feel you asking me like, what the hell does that mean? So half as many dollars are spent as were a decade ago, but there's probably 1.5 times the number of patients.
Yes. We know that there are more patients entering our industry. 10,000 patients a day are entering our industry specifically.
Holy.
And that's baby boomers, right? Like, you know, very classically, like a lot of people.
10,000 a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That's hard to wrap your head around. There's something consolidating that quickly though, and not to jump all the way to current day, but like the cream is rising to the top, right? I mean, like you guys both still have impressive titles and pretty solid careers in that field, but maybe some of the other people have fallen off on the wayside. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, anytime you have that type of a shrink that happens, right? That's certainly
because the reason why I bring that up is because I feel like neither one of you guys went to college to do this necessarily. You know, you both ended up in this industry, and Jen, I'm really
that is a true statement.
To take it back for you, if you don't mind. You know, you mentioned 10 years in this industry, but your path to where you are it's remarkable. And we're not here to compliment Ryan, but he's done an equally impressive job in that industry. So it's nice to have both of you, you know, who kind of rubbed elbows and have gone through it together over all this time. Jen, you said 10 years. Like, is that, you mean?
It's been almost 10 years that I've been in this specific industry. So,
I mean, that doesn't seem like that much to me.
The post-acute care space and the company that I work for, we've also acquired a lot of different aspects of different, you know, if it's something to make the business bigger and better, we're out to look to purchase it or recreate it. And so they purchased the company that I worked for about 5 years ago. And so my little division brought on the patient billing aspect of what they were missing before. So, But
it turns out you didn't grow up thinking, I want to bill patients.
Oh gosh, no. I honestly thought that I was going to either be a kindergarten school teacher. And so we know how well they get paid. But my degree is actually in criminal justice.
Okay.
So,
sure.
You know, I mean, in college, don't we all flounder just a little bit? I kind of floundered a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You got to flounder at some point. College is the best time to do it, I think. I mean, not throughout, but find some time in there to flounder for sure.
Yeah. So I floundered quite a bit, and I partied a bit and left, came back.
It's funny. I did that. On our last show, we were talking about rave parties.
Oh,
seems to be a consistent theme.
I don't know that I've ever been to a rave party though, honestly.
I think it was like it was like a Detroit.
It's a Detroit.
That's a Detroit thing.
Yeah.
Jen, I don't know you very well, but you would have been going to raves too. And I know that seems like, whoa, I'm not a rave, but like it was just that regional where it was like, no.
I can tell you that if there was a rave party, I would probably be there because I have a ginormous fear of missing out. Right. And so if there's and I will admit that, like I have huge FOMO.
Right.
And so if there's a party, I'm there.
Well, and also maybe your hometown doesn't have like an overpopulation of abandoned warehouses either, right? So like that also helps contribute to the rave culture, right?
That facilitates the raves for sure.
Yeah. But I will say that I was the rave coordinator in my small town, even though it wasn't in an abandoned warehouse. So it was always, before I went to high school or before I went to college, it was my maiden name is Johnson.
Okay.
And it was parties at Johnson's house. And so the bathtub was full of Keystone Light. Okay. There was trash can punch in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. The guys would all get there first and they'd start parking cars. I lived at a dead end of a dirt road. Mm-hmm. They'd park all the cars like out in the pasture.
Yep.
When I moved up to Toronto and I talked to people that grew up kind of in the outskirts of the city, it's super rural out there. So people would be like, oh yeah, like farm parties. And I was like, no, I don't know. What's a farm party? I didn't grow up around farms. I grew up, but it turns out, I think, as a teenager, you will party in whatever is available, right? Like,
true.
If there was a bunch of containers by us, we would have probably found out how to pry those things open and party in those. But turns out we had abandoned buildings and they sufficed. I mean, that was just the goal.
But I hear like fields and vehicles being parked in. I have to imagine, and I know you're from Kansas, right? So. You could probably insert some jokes there, which I won't, but like you're from rural, like the literal middle of the country, right?
And the literally middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there were 13 people in my high school graduating class.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It's just a small little town. We had a gas station. We had a co-op. We had a school. Obviously I went to the school there. And a bank, post office, a little grocery store, and a little restaurant that always served Mexican food on Wednesday nights.
Okay. Nice.
I worked there as a waitress through my high school years.
Okay.
Waiting tables to the old men that would drink coffee there on Saturday morning. And then they go down to the co-op and finish drinking their coffee down there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, small town. And my family still lives there today. So I get the best of both worlds living in Kansas City. Obviously, I'm raising 2 children. Have my home there, have my husband there. But we get in the car and drive 5 hours west, and it's just like nothing.
Right.
So, I really love having that contrast and being able to go back home. If I had to move back to a small town, like I would be the one that would run for mayor and open every business I could think of because I just love the idea of this small town.
Sure. I can imagine that.
I can imagine that too.
It's reasonably doable. Or at least, I watch a lot of Schitt's Creek. And so I feel like it's reasonably doable to do that way. So, but like, I feel like a town that was overseen by you would certainly be somewhere that would be cool to live. So would the rest of the family feel that way though? You think you get like Kansas City's a pretty happening place, right? For a lot of people who haven't been to Kansas City.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my kids, although they're only 12 and 7, they'd have some really strong thoughts about us moving back home. And
I was pretty consumed. I'm still hung up on that number too. Jen, you said you graduated with 13 that was your graduating class. Could you, and again, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but, how many of those people went on to college?
So 7 of us actually went on to the same JUCO college.
Oh, cool.
7 of us. So over half the class. And we actually have, out of the class, we have a very successful cardiothoracic surgeon. And he used to drink a fifth of Jack like every weekend. True story. Smartest guy. I mean, like legit, this guy, he didn't have to study for a thing. He could walk into class super hungover still from Saturday on Monday, and he'd ace it. Like, he's just so smart. You know, I consider myself obviously a successful professional that hailed from the class as well. I would say that out of everybody that went to college, I would say it was about 75 to 80%. But out of that percent, then you had some people that came back home and wanted to run the family farm or what have you. So I would say it's probably 50% that went on to, you know, stay in college. And I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'd have to actually sit through and think through all the 13, but where everybody's at. And some of them went on to get their degrees, but then, you know, like one of my friends is a stay-at-home mom, and she's got a degree. She was a dental hygienist for many years. So, just a kind of a different group. But what I really love is that we all come back to the same place every year or so and get together. You know, when we celebrated our 20-year reunion a few years ago, there were 11 of us there. So it's
out of 13, really that's awesome.
Like, it's really important. That's the other thing about the small town is you really value that relationship. And so nobody wants to miss it.
Sure.
Did everyone there know like where number 12 and where number 13 were, or is it not that tight?
Yeah, no, we were like, oh, well, they couldn't come because they had, I mean, everybody knew if they were going to be there or not. So that's
an obligation, man. If there's only 13 of you, like, I know I did not let anyone down by not attending my reunion last fall. I guarantee it. That's why it's good to get out of town a little bit. Give a quick, what is the name of your hometown?
Lewis, Kansas.
Lewis.
Lewis, Kansas. Yeah, right on Highway 50 between Dodge City and Hutchinson, Kansas. So.
Oh yeah, Dodge City. That's
Boot Hill, Dodge City. Yeah.
Hey, it's Ryan. Thanks for listening today. I'm curious, when we showed up before you started the episode, did we show up automatically in your feed because you've subscribed to us? Or are you still one of those people who's out there and we show up randomly on your podcast channel? What I want to ask you to do is to take a second, pause the episode, jump out, and hit that subscribe button. It's helpful. We're everywhere. YouTube, iTunes, all the tunes, anywhere you might be able to search us. Find us where you listen and subscribe. We appreciate it. I've kind of gone after college. Like, I have a crew from college, you know, Mike is a part of, but like, it's so admirable to like have such a group and like being so young. Right. And I don't think that like a lot of people get to experience that, you know, and a lot of people have like weird falling outs too. It's interesting that like you could have a falling out with an adult friend that you met a few years ago, and you could have a falling out just like that. But somebody that you knew since you were a child, such a different dynamic to have like a lifelong falling out with them, you know?
Yeah.
You usually definitely a different dynamic. Up. With the newer people, I'm like, I've only known that guy for 2 years. I can probably meet another one. But yeah, the old friends, I mean, with the old friends, it's either the same shit you've been fighting about for 15 years. You know what I mean? Or like that at this point, someone who's been in your life for that long, I mean, I'm not going to make any insensitive, you know, sever that thing, but you can't, you know, like they've affected you. They're part of your inner workings. You know what I mean? Like, there are people where it's like, man, I wish I could cut that limb off, but you know, it's at this point, they're a part of me. And, you know, my wife and I have been together for a long time. So these relationships are a part of us. And yeah, it's just like, we've survived for this long, might as well ride it out. But yeah, the new relationships, they don't have the same levity. They really are, man. There's my threshold for bullshit on new things is much, much less than on old things.
Born and raised in Kansas, never really left except to travel for work and such. But Kansas is where I'll remain more than likely. Although, as was mentioned earlier, Ryan, there's some really beautiful homes right here in the Atlanta area. Yeah. So I had my eye on a few.
You can come to Atlanta for a while. That's kind of like what we got going on. I mean, we'll go home, but yeah. It's quite an investment though.
It is. Yeah. And I don't think Atlanta traffic and I wouldn't get along. So at any rate, I went on to Fort Hays State, and that's where I really, lost my way, if you will, and left and went back and left and went back. And I just ended up staying when I met a boy that is now my husband. So,
okay.
Yeah. And that's, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up, so to speak. And rumor had it that criminal justice was like a cakewalk degree. And I was interested in I mean, everybody's kind of interested, right? In just the criminal system. And so I pursued that, and I had a lot of fun doing that, and actually thought that that's where my career would take me because I really enjoyed it. I did a internship with the Juvenile Justice Authority in Topeka, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And ended up moving to Topeka, of course, and I did an internship there. And I thought, okay, this is, I want to like help troubled kids. I want to work with children at some point. And I kind of came from a little bit of a, it wasn't a Brady upbringing by any means. And so I thought that there was some value that I could add by working with troubled kids. And so I was pursuing my degree in criminal justice when I was doing my internship, and I ended up moving to Wichita, Kansas, for my husband's job, and ended up just working at a weather risk management company. So weather risk management, like what is that exactly? And I'll give just kind of a 30 seconds so you guys know what that is. It's we had a group of meteorologists on site and larger clients such as, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, Southern Pacific, some of those larger corporations, or logistic companies rather, that, needed up-to-date weather information. Because if you're ever driving along a railroad track and you see like a double stacked train where you can see like, two semi-trailers, if you will, stacked on top of each other, they're actually not tied down. They're literally just sitting right on top of each other.
Holy shit. Really?
Yeah, literally. And so if the train encounters, gusts of wind above, whatever mile per hour it was, 20, 30 miles an hour, it's going to derail the train. And exactly. So,
yikes.
So I started working for them as kind of, just really just answering phones for them. And because I was finishing my degree and I was finishing it online. And so it was a job, right?
Job. Yeah. I'm sorry, but you described that one and I'm like, what the hell? I mean, that could not have been that fun. All your colleagues are like meteorologists. Yeah. And you're a tornado season, student, so that was just a job, right?
Tornado season in Kansas is exciting because then all of a sudden they run from the weather room and they're all running to the front door and they're like,
you know what? All right.
We're going storm chasing. Who wants to go?
That's totally true. And I'm so totally sorry. But yeah, in Kansas, that's probably like a hobby until I moved to Hawaii. Yep. Yeah. There's a name for it and everything. But until I moved out here and met like surfers, okay, you're playing on those storms. I get that. But yeah, I guess growing up in Kansas, that's a different.
And weather chasing is like an extreme sport. Like it is, they've got cars are, like they have vehicles made to withstand. For it,
right?
Yes.
Awesome.
So I was going to just finish finish college, just working this job. And I ended up, finishing college, but I ended up moving up in kind of doing a little bit more of their marketing efforts and planning trade shows for them and then going to the trade show. And so I really kind of liked it. And then when I finished my degree, I was like, I've got this good job. I'm not going to bounce because they've been pretty good to me. And then I ended up actually getting sick while I was working there. So I ended up I was diagnosed with stage 3 small bowel cancer when I was 26. And that's when I was working at the weather risk management company. Cancer really kind of opens your eyes to a few things. And I realized that I wasn't as happy as what I thought that I was at that job. And then I started searching and moved on and found my now home in Kansas City by going to work for a fitness company.
Okay.
In marketing. I was doing their marketing and grand opening their new clubs and working on the marketing plans and the grand opening plans. And so that's what working with sales guys, helping them get balloons to put out on the corner. But anyway, that's how I landed in Kansas City. So yeah.
That's a bit of a natural progression, except for the part when you have like a life-changing illness at such a young age.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was 26, and I had just finished partying at that point. Yeah. It was definitely a huge slap in the face to be told that at 26, you have stage 3 cancer. So, I had been sick for a couple of years, like sick in that I knew something I didn't feel well, but I didn't know what it was. And I just thought, I need to clean up my eating habits, or I need to be healthier. I need to get back to the gym, and I ended up, that's kind of how I ended up realizing that something bigger was going on.
We don't need to revisit this later on. I would rather just kind of dive into it a little bit here.
Sure.
Because when you mentioned this last time, I just couldn't wrap my head around in the way you talk about it. I can envision you you didn't take a day off. I'm sure you took some time off, but literally, I think I recall you saying you're working 40-hour weeks, doing treatments during the week. What made it go from not feeling good to, holy shit, I have cancer? Can you walk me through the actual, did you just go to the doctor one day?
Yeah, no, like I said, I started working out, and I thought maybe I just need to, lose a little bit of weight. I had been married for 2 years. And so I thought we'd gotten comfortable, and I had gained a little bit of weight. And I thought, so Chris is my husband, we started going to the gym, and I was finding that I was getting really lightheaded when I was standing, not just I got up too fast. It was every single time I moved, I was getting lightheaded. I also was having trouble with some stomach pain, but it didn't seem like I could pinpoint it. And I'm sure your listeners won't mind, so I'll get into the nitty gritty of it. But you learn a lot about people when you marry them in the first couple of years.
Understatement, but yeah.
Yeah.
He was having regular bathroom visits, on a regular daily thing. I was like, what is wrong with you? Is it the food I'm cooking? What is going on? He's like, what do you mean? No, your food's great. I don't know, how often do you go? I was like, I don't know. I went last Saturday, and that was a week ago.
Okay.
And so I wasn't having regular healthy function of my body. I didn't feel backed up or anything.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't going. And so I think when I really decided something was wrong is two events. It was one evening we were working out in the gym, and I literally fell to the ground and passed out. And then 2, I don't believe I've ever made beef broccoli again in my home, but I made stir-fried beef broccoli. And I ate it, and I threw it up almost instantly because my stomach it was hurting. I was in bent over pain. And I literally went to a doctor, just a general or primary care physician. And she said, there is nothing wrong with you. You need to go home and enjoy being married. And she even alluded to the fact that maybe I wasn't as happy in my newly married life as
why do they do that? What's wrong with you saying, hey, let's run a bunch more tests and spend your insurance company's money?
I'll speculate on that because I don't know why they do that, right? But I think that anxiety is so common and misunderstood that's probably the first thing for a young person, maybe even more so female, right?
Yeah.
And as a physician, I think your role is to decide about those tests, right? So if everything else seems functional,
Well, and when you're a female, stomach pain could be a lot of different.
A lot of other things too. I get that.
So, but I agree with you, Mike. Like I was pissed. You know, I was like, okay, like there's something wrong here. I don't understand. And she said, the only thing we can really do for you is go in and do exploratory surgery. And you definitely don't want us to do that because, you know, I what they did know is that I was anemic, which is why I was like getting lightheaded.
Okay. Yeah.
But they didn't know why. And so she just said, you need to take some iron. Well, when I got to Wichita, I was so anemic that I ended up, my hemoglobin was at an 8 and it should have been a 14 for a girl my age. Okay. And so I ended up having a blood transfusion because I was so I was losing blood and nobody knew why. And my doctor looked at me, my new doctor in Wichita looked at me and said, are you driving around like this? Like, are you driving around the city like this? And I said, well, yeah, I'm driving to work every day and like, you know, the gym. And
because you could just faint basically at almost any time.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, we're admitting you and we're going to give you a couple liters of blood. I was like right now you're doing that? Like I need to I need to call my husband and it was it kind of happened real fast. So then after that, I found the right doctors at that point, and they said, "Listen, we can tell something isn't right, and we're not gonna stop till we find it." And he referred me to a GI doctor, but couldn't find anything. And so everybody's familiar with a colonoscopy. Endoscopy, they go up through your mouth. Or in through your mouth. And so they went from both ends, right?
Yeah. I mean,
however, there is a part of your intestines that they cannot get to. Okay. And that is where the cancer was at. And so they said, listen, there's one more test we're going to do. We're going to stick like an IV tube in through your nose. And mind you, you'll be awake through the whole test. Oh. Because we need you to swallow this tube and we're going to push it into your intestines and then we're going to x-ray your abdomen and look around, light it up with contrast and look around. He's like, if this doesn't work, then we're going to have to send you down to Oklahoma City and you're going to have to swallow a capsule with a camera in it. Okay. Oh. Because they didn't have that in Kansas at the time, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I said, all right, cool. So I went and did the test and it was painful. They put a little bit of lubricant on it to get it past your sinuses. And then you literally he just pushes it down in there while he's telling you to swallow. And you're trying not to gag. But he got it in there. And that's when they ran into the tumor. Okay. And they sent me home and said, hey, we'll have the radiologist read it. Of course, the radiologist called me the next day. He said, you've got scar tissue in your intestines and that's what's causing the blockage and we got to get it out. Okay. I was supposed to be in my high school best friend's wedding that weekend. And so I said, well, you're going to have to, schedule this for Monday because I got plans this weekend. Okay. I mean, I was 26, I was like, I'm not thinking at the time that I have cancer. And
you didn't know at the time that you did either, right? Because he's telling you it's scar tissue.
They said it's scar tissue. It's probably from an infection you had. You didn't even realize you had it. And we'll just go in, we'll remove it laparoscopically and you'll be out of the hospital in 24 hours. I was like, all right, let's get it for Monday then. So then I went to my best friend's wedding. We had a great time. I went in Monday morning for surgery and I woke up Wednesday with tubes and everything. And I obviously woke up 2 days later wondering where the hell am I? And the oncologist had come in at 6 a.m. and my husband had actually gone home that night. We didn't have children at the time, so that was a blessing, but he'd gone home that evening and stayed the night at our house. And because his mom was there as well. His parents and my family was there. Anyway, the oncologist came in at 6 o'clock in the morning and told me I had stage 3 cancer. And I was by myself when he told me. So it was, I was a kid, like I was 26. Right. I couldn't talk back because I had tubes. I had GI tubes in my throat preventing me from talking. And so when Chris did get there, it's like I can remember specifics from the day. They gave me a whiteboard and I wrote on the whiteboard. And then the doctor came in and was telling him everything, kind of repeating everything. So, but they removed it. It had spread to my lymph nodes. They removed some of my lymph nodes, and they said you're going to have to do 9 months of chemo. So that was in April, 15 years ago, and then I started chemo in June of that same year. And every Monday I'd leave work at 2 p.m, go do 2 hour worth of treatments. And when you're in your 20s, you don't really think about life from this philosophical kind of bigger.
Stuff.
Yeah. I was literally thinking about, this is fine. Like,
this is what I do. I have to do this.
Let's just get it over with. Like, I'm fine. Let's just keep moving.
Even when they threw the C word out there, or did that? Because like to me that had to have changed some things. Somewhat.
It didn't, because I was 26 and I didn't have any kids.
Okay.
So let's fast forward though. And I was actually diagnosed a second time with cancer, which was just 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 5 years ago, I was 37 years old. That's when I was like, oh shit. Right.
Well,
when I was in my 20s, I was like, we'll get over it.
Well, and I think you're right. Like in our 20s, it could be anything. It could be imminent. And we're just like, well, let's see what this feels like. But at 37, you've got 2 children and you've already beat cancer once.
Once.
I would just jump right to the angry stage and hang out there for a long time. That would be my new house, is the house of anger that Mike built.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not right. That's not right.
No, it's not fair, and I went through all of those emotions just 5 years ago, because now I've got a 6-year-old. I have an 18-month-old baby still in diapers. Like I was like, this cannot be happening.
Right.
And I'll never forget when I felt it come back, which, people say cancer doesn't hurt. Well, I call bullshit on that, because cancer in your intestines does hurt because you can't pass food through.
Okay.
I was at an industry conference that we went to regularly called MedTrade, and it's, everybody in our industry, the industry I'm in now, so DME, was there at the conference, and I couldn't go to any client dinners. I couldn't hardly work the booth. I was just bent over in pain the entire time. I got home, I made an appointment with my oncologist, and I said, I think cancer's back. And she looked at me and she said, Jennifer, nobody gets cancer twice, and nobody gets it in their small bowel twice. So I'm pretty sure you don't have cancer.
So yet again.
Yeah. A female oncologist. And I'm not knocking the female doctors by any means, but 2 female doctors. And so I said, well, I would like to have some tests done. I mean, I've got insurance. Let's just do the tests. So we did the tests. I swallowed the pill with the camera in it now, right? Because I was in Kansas City, and let's skip
all the other bullshit. Let me just go to the highest one right away.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I did.
Through that any longer.
And sure enough, she called me back and said, "You're right. You've got a tumor in your intestines again, and we think it's a recurrence of the old cancer."
I'm sorry. Recurrence of old cancer typically indicates they think that it had remasticized,
like a microscopic cell that was still left in there that they couldn't get. I was pissed. I was really, really, really angry. And, I've got these 2 kids. I've got this career now that I love.
Right.
And,
you're not just watching tornadoes out the window anymore.
Right. I'm not just I'm not chasing storms. It's a different kind of storm that I actually enjoy, Right. I couldn't believe it. I literally was like, this cannot be happening. My husband, who is amazingly supportive, said, you know what? He took on the role of me that I took on it when I was 26. He's like, we're going to get through it. It's going to be fine. And all I could think about was, how can you say that? Like, look at these kids. Their Max is in diapers. Like, I can't believe this is happening. So we went in with the idea, the notion that we were really going to get rid of it this time. And so they were going to, of course, I've been slit from my belly button up to the bottom of my breastbone twice. And they went in and prepared me, and they said, you're going to have a treatment called HIPEC. And they were going to, while I was in surgery, they would infuse chemotherapy that was heated to 98 degrees, heated to my body temperature, infuse it while I was open on the table, and just like gently rock my body back and forth for 90 minutes.
Okay.
To make the chemo like go through every single organism and cell in my entire body.
Like a warm bath of
warm bath of poison. Yes. I went in with that idea that I was going to be in the hospital for 2 weeks. It was a very, very invasive and very hard, intrusive procedure they were going to do. And I woke up and they said, good news. We didn't have to do the HIPEC. It was just contained in one small area, and you'll have to do external chemo again, but we didn't have to do the HIPEC surgery. And I was irate. I said, you wheel my ass back in there and you open me back up and you inject that freaking chemo in me right now. And Dr. Al, my surgeon, he's like, you don't understand. You don't need it. I said, you don't understand. I have 2 babies at home. I simmered down. They gave me a good shot of Dilaudid or whatever to take the nerve off. And I went in and I recovered. And so I was really upset that I felt like that was going to be my insurance policy against getting cancer again.
Yeah.
And come to find out, after they tested the tumor that they removed, it was only stage 1. Okay. And they do not administer chemo for anything that is stage 1 cancer.
Okay.
So they said, you don't need any chemo. And I was like, it was kind of a mind game it was playing with me, because I was like, okay, wait a minute. So you're telling me.
You just don't trust anyone, right? I mean,
right. I'm like, first of all, I went to 2 doctors who told me I didn't have cancer. And then I have cancer. And then it came back a second time. And then now you're telling me I don't need chemo. Like, I think you took away my insurance policy of the HIPEC treatment. I'm pretty sure I need to do external chemo, but I did not want to do external chemo. I hated it. It's just poison, flushing poison out of your body.
Right.
And it's really rough. And so they convinced me, and I believed them. And so I didn't have to have it. But then I had a small scare last year where I had another instance of intestinal pain, and I had an intussusception of my intestines, where your intestines like telescope inside of each other and they get stuck.
Okay.
And so I had another surgery last year, but I actually do live with a gene that predisposes me to cancer a lot more readily than just a normal human being. Okay. I have Lynch syndrome, Lynch. So
okay. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And so that over the 15 years, of course, gene testing becomes a thing, right?
Yep. I did genetic testing, and that's how I found out. So my kids have a 50% chance of carrying the same gene I do.
Okay.
Which is scary, but at least now I know to do preventative checkups to ensure that if it does come back, we can get it early.
How does that work? Like it's a maintenance schedule, I guess, right? Like, you're not a car. I mean, geez.
Well, I am kind of. Yeah. I go and I have, I do watch my sugar intake. Cancer cells feed off of sugar. And so I try to watch my sugar intake. I mean, I still enjoy pizza and ice cream with my kids because listen, it's my kids and this is my life, and I love food. So I just try to do it in moderation. And I also work out. I try to keep very healthy. I work out 6 days a week and make sure that, out of all of those things, what I do every year is I do a colonoscopy. I do an endoscopy. I do a capsule endoscopy. Okay. I have CT scans and MRI scans. Like, I am 42 and I will continue to do that every year for the rest of my life.
Probably becomes easier. Like, at some point on Instagram is going to come out. It's going to be like, for $2.99, you can just buy your own swallowable camera.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure at some point.
Give it a couple years.
Yeah. Right. You'll be able to have it like a ultrasound closet you could order out of like Sky Mall. Sky Mall still?
I don't think they're there anymore now. But you have some questions?
Please. Yeah. But
he's got his notebook. I can see he's looking down his notebook there. He's written.
No, that's
ready.
No, you're friggin' captivating, Jen. I can't help but want to kind of bounce back between the 26-year-old version of cancer versus 37. And you mentioned 2 things, and they're different, so I'd like you to address them differently. But 2 things existed during both things. You were employed and you had a husband. And it sounds like your response to them was night and day from the first to the second. Was it kind of the same setup on the first one? Like, was Chris freaking out and you were like, it's going to be cool, dude, we're fine, versus on the second one, he was the rock and you were the shaky ship?
Yeah. So it's funny because he actually admitted to me when I was diagnosed the second time that he actually thought the first time that I was making it up. And he...
Oh, man.
So
we're going to need to schedule Chris for the episode interview.
And he even told you that. Yeah, no, right, I love this guy.
What a good guy.
I love you, babe. Yeah. But he actually admitted that to me, many years ago. And he said, I got to say, he's like, I just got to come clean. Like, I thought you were making it up. Because he's like, your stomach always hurt at the most inopportune times for a newly married couple, if you get my drift. And
Poor Chris.
Poor guy. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, you seriously? Like, I cannot believe you thought that I was making that up, dude. But he stood pretty steady in that first time. He hid his emotions really well, and he admitted to me that he was a wreck on the inside because he felt a lot of guilt for thinking I was making it up. And then these doctors are telling him, your wife has stage 3 cancer.
Oh, sure.
So he harbored a lot of internal guilt, and he didn't want to share that with me at the time because all he wanted to do was focus on me getting better. The second time around, I was a nervous wreck, and he was my steady rock because as the mom of these 2 kids, all I'm thinking of is who's going to take care of my kids. Like, so what's crazy is now we're both this is our life. Like it's like going to the grocery store for us. When he takes me to KU Med for my tests every year, we get up, we go to the hospital, we check in, like we know the drill. We're not going to let it define us, but we're going to rather control the way it defines the way we live from here on out. And so we have all the control. And every year I'm a nervous wreck for those tests.
You shared a little bit about how that affects your daughter, which probably likely ends up in some sort of clinical career, I guess. Who knows?
Your oldest is 12. I'm sorry.
Ava Catherine. Yes. I call her Ava K. She is 12. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And she, I'll share a story obviously she wasn't around the first time. And so, when she was growing up and like, she'd see the scar on my belly, she'd ask me what that was from. And I would tell her that, mommy was sick before you came along but I'm not going to be sick again and it's fine. And, she was, 5 or younger when I was saying this. Right. And so she doesn't know what cancer is. I just would say I was sick. Well, when I was diagnosed the second time and I had to tell her, it was extremely hard. And we were, I don't remember the day that we told her per se, but I remember an event, and it's probably because I took a picture of her sitting in the back seat of my car as I was sitting at a stop sign when a certain song came on, and she made a comment about the fact that I was going to have surgery next week. And she said she started crying. She was 6, sitting in the back seat, and I'm looking at her in the rearview mirror. This song came on by Sarah Bareilles called Brave.
Okay.
And it's kind of a good little, anthem for just if you're down on yourself or type of thing. But it's a peppy song. Anyway, I looked at her in the rearview mirror and she was sitting there crying. And I was like, Ava baby, what's wrong? Like, why are you crying? And she's like, I just don't want you to die. And I was like, oh shit. Like, this is, I don't even know what to say to this child because I don't know what's going to happen. Right. And I don't want to promise her. But I said, Ava, mommy's going to be brave, just like this song is saying. And it's like bringing tears to my eyes, recalling it because it's such a powerful memory for me. But she is an artistic soul. She dances and she draws and she loves to paint. And everything she draws is always got the words "be brave" on it. It really impacted her at a very young and tender age, and it will be something that she'll remember forever.
It's a family thing, right?
Like, it's a family affair now, yeah.
She had grown, even though, gosh, as a 6-year-old kid, you have no way to understand like what the levity is, maybe even of losing a parent, right? But you understand the feeling that your parents are going through. She carries that weight with her for so long. and will forever.
And does every day. Yeah.
She'll probably have a Brave tattoo because I know she's also like 11 going on 21. Right?
Yeah, so she is.
She'll be asking for a Brave.
Yeah, a Brave tattoo.
Now, hopefully, just to tie this back to earlier in the episode, it won't be like a 90s Asian script of the word Brave. You might have to,
you might
Brave after that. That's right.
I never ever dreamed that this would be my life.
Right.
But honestly, I have a really good life. Like I really do, even through having cancer twice and, other obstacles I've encountered. I am extremely grateful.
We try not to predicate, certainly the type of people that we're fortunate to bring on the show. We try not to predicate like what we say or what they should say. And we try to learn to become better journalists, right, Mike? I mean, that's like the big part of what we're trying to teach ourselves. And so it's interesting. It's true.
You guys are great.
Guest by guest, one thing that I think is common, but they almost always have a story in which most people would have given up. If our listeners could take one thing from spending an hour with us, or I think often they know somebody who talks about having been on the show, and then they start to listen to the other episodes. I think that they could certainly take away that perseverance is possible with the rest of your life. And sometimes, like if you're doing what you love, that rest of your life fuels like the perseverance through the tragedy,
Mm-hmm. Jen, can I just say how grateful I am? Thank you so much for sharing. I didn't personally, your attitude, your perseverance, your strength. Like I wanted to kind of get into it in the thought that if we could help, if we could facilitate you communicating to one person out there.
Yeah, don't let life happenings define you, right? Like whatever you're going through, right? Everybody's going through shit, but don't let it define you. And that's one thing that I am actually super proud of myself for making sure that I did, is I didn't really have great role models growing up outside of just the educators that I was spending 8 hours a day with. Mm-hmm. And something in me decided that I was going to, get the hell out of Dodge and going to make my own way. And I've always, always, always done that. And I think that's what got me through the two instances of the life-changing event. I mean, when you get diagnosed with cancer once, it's one thing. When they tell you have it a second time, then you're like, okay, what the hell? Like, why me?
Right.
So, that would be my advice. And the other thing is I love, love, love sharing my story with people. And Ryan, that I speak at a lot of conferences, and in healthcare, I'm able to bring my story into my speaking sessions because it just makes sense, because I am a patient of healthcare and I'm talking to them about their patients of healthcare. So I share my story. And I actually had a couple years ago when I was at MedTrade, the same show that I was at a few, 5 years ago when I realized I wasn't feeling well again. I had a lady come up to me and she said, I heard you speak last year at this conference. She's like, and I went and scheduled my colonoscopies immediately after I heard your story. She's like, it was so powerful.
Yeah.
That I just really felt like your conviction of telling us, the audience, that we need to go get those damn scopes done when nobody wants to do it. Right. I mean, it's not the best medical test out there, but which one is, and, she said they actually found precancerous polyps in her colon that they were able to remove. And she said, literally said to me, and she was crying as she's telling me this after I'm done speaking. She said, hearing you speak about it at such a young age convinced me to go and do it for myself. So go get your damn colonoscopies.
No, that's Jen. I've never even come close to welling up. And you describing your daughter in the backseat of the car in that conversation about the Sarah Bareilles song "Brave." That was heavy, man. That was really heavy.
Yeah, it's one of those Instagram memories that pops up on my memories every couple of years now. And
so you took a picture of her.
That picture is actually on your feed.
It is in my social feed. Mm-hmm. You can, and I'll send it to you so you can see, so you can just like bring it all into context of the story, because it literally just popped up the other day.
Yeah. We talk a lot about how, social media is weird and you got to make sure that you get some face-to-face exposure, but it doesn't come up very often in which those memories are really like bring us back to places.
Right. And social media can be very fake and people are just post whatever they want. But some of it, at least this memory coming up, was very real. It's a very real thing. Like it brought back all the emotions of me taking that picture 5 years ago. So, yeah.
Can I ask you something? And this is kind of odd and you may not have a quick answer for it, but a lot of times we're talking to our guests, and we get these people that are pretty work centric, and we kind of force them to talk about the balance they have in their life because, we wouldn't have just the successful people on here because they're usually not that fun to talk to. We like to have happy and successful people. How do you keep pursuing the happy other than just being cancer free? Does that make sense? You've won, but in your description, you've already indicated like, no, man, I'm not a cancer survivor first. I'll mention that eventually, but that's not what you're about. So like, how do you,
I still have a lot to do. I don't know what it is yet, but I have a lot to do and have a lot of positive impact to make. I really do believe that. And, to kind of just put it out there into the universe so that I have to do it now. I want to write a children's book.
Okay.
And I want Ava to be the illustrator of it because she's an amazing artist. And I want to talk about the story is how a mom gets cancer for the second time. I want to relate it back to my story because while I never really heard anybody's story during my diagnosis that, made me feel like, oh, I can beat this. It was really just my own internal, I can beat this. I do believe in the power of stories. And I believe that if there would have been a book that I would have known about at the time, which I'm sure there was 5 years ago, about a mom or dad getting sick, and I could have read that to my children, I would have. I really want to write a children's book with my daughter. And I just think that would be something that would be really, really special to her. And it would be really special to me. And it might impact somebody else's life that we're not aware of right now. So
she's at the right age to probably start to roll into it, right? Before the rest of the world starts to influence, right? Because you should be able to capture that dynamic of her feeling and then your observance together to spin up a story.
Not that she couldn't do it at 16 or 17 with me, but 12, 13, and 14, that's still that age of innocence, right?
Yeah.
and she was 6. And so she remembers it like the day was yesterday. And I want to get those memories in a book, and I want to tell our story from her point and from mine. I always wanted to be a mom. That's all I ever wanted was to be a mom.
Yeah.
I didn't want a fancy career. I didn't want a lot of money. I just wanted a happy home, and I wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And for some unbeknownst reason to me, I was blessed with all of those. I try not to, like, some people would be like, oh, I'm just waiting for the cards to fall, somewhere. But I'm just enjoying it, and I'm just living in the happy.
You're like playing your fresh hand every day.
Yeah. I mean,
I do love that though.
I'm waking up, dude.
Yeah.
I'm waking up with a roof over my head, with a successful career, with these 2 amazing kids, this amazing life, this husband that loves me, this amazing home in this amazing city, of Kansas City, go Chiefs. I mean, it's just like, I don't think
you
get any better.
Well, and I'm sorry, but I hope I don't have to survive cancer twice to be so mindful, but I do aspire, Jen. I really aspire to have your, just your personality and your take and your approach to every single day. I'm trying, but for me, it's a conscious, remind myself every 5 minutes. But you've shared a great amount of your time with us, and honestly, even more valuable than that, I think this story that you've shared. And man, I hope we get more than our usual kind of limited amount of listeners on this one. Not for us, for the listeners' sake. Your story is amazing, Jen. I'm such a big fan.
Glad to share it.
Please thank Chris for us as well. That dude's obviously a stud. And when you and Ava K go on your book tour, I hope you'll come to Hawaii. You need to do that. Copies. When you write that book, you're not going to be able to do your day job anymore. You're going to have to.
No, that's like, maybe that's my,
That's the transition.
That's a transition, maybe.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know how long it takes to write a book and get a book published, so we'll see.
I
think you, probably not long at all.
Right. You might need a plan B. Maybe it's a series of books of some sort.
Yeah. Honored that you guys asked me to be on your show, because I honestly said, well, what am I going to talk about? Like, what?
I truly subscribe to the idea that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason that we lost the footage from that first time, because we learned a couple of these things, but not to the capacity and not to the detail of the feeling that I think that we captured today on the microphone, which for me is especially important in the way that we know each other, because like we see each other in a lot of professional environments, and we've grown up together in some ways, right?
Yeah, we really have.
And hopefully part of all of this, like flying around, we're recording this in Atlanta, which is not Kansas City, right? Where those beautiful kids live. We spend a lot of time on the road, and I hope that for you and myself too, I should say us, that we get an opportunity to transition a little bit earlier to that like second career, if that's what it is, right? Whether it's writing books or
a second act.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I hope that becomes like a part of what we're able to be paid back for a little bit. Not that I feel like it's owed to me, and I certainly won't speak for you, but that's a big part of it, what seems to come forward about people once they achieve a conventional or a certain amount of like title success in the resume, Yeah, it's not so much about like that raise that you were chasing every time, which is important, right? We could do a whole other episode. In fact, we were talking recently about pulling together a consortium of some of the, we've had some high powered women on the show at this point in time. And maybe like, how do you chase your money in an environment that maybe doesn't always lend itself to it, So maybe we will get to have her back, Mike.
Yeah, you might. I mean,
hope so.
You got my number, so.
Yeah. All right. Who's wrapping it up here, man? You or me?
You are. You're the wrap-up master.
I'm the wrap-up master. Well, Carter's about to come into the shot. He has transferred between both of our chairs. He's cuddling back up. But you're listening to conventioNOT. Jen, if I want to follow you, where do I go?
Yeah.
Like, what's my spot?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook also, but you're going to see a lot of pictures of my kids doing all their stuff out there.
Find you on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah.
If I wanted to get in touch with you, LinkedIn maybe.
Yeah. LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me. Yeah. I would love to connect with any of those listeners out there that may have some sort of similarities to my story. And I'm always willing to share more. Hit me up. Awesome. Let's be friends.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate it. Listen to conventioNOT. We're on all the channels. You should be following us if you're not. That's it. Let's stop recording. This is a great episode.